So, KirbyKid, what level did you pick? That was Tree Zone 3?
Let me check.
That was Tree Zone
Tree
2.
Zone 3, yeah.
Okay.
It's Tree Zone 3.
Tree Zone 3. Before you get into it, I just want to ask a basic question here.
3.
Is the level set on leaves, or is it set on coffee beans?
They're actually cacao beans in the background, because this whole level is made out of chocolate. And these leaves are technically cacao pods.
That is what it looks like. That's even better, yeah.
The theme of Tree Zone 3 is trees, and what that means. See, trees are a perfect example. It's a perfect metaphor for a branching network system, because trees create their branches out of splits in their branches. I should say the word over and over, but and that's cool. Like, I understand that, right? But then trees are also very non-linear. Come on, no, because the branches often have overlap in places where you can leap from branch to branch. I mean, that's why we like trees, right?
They're very dense.
So, yeah, so this whole level is set inside of a tree, and that's exactly what it does, and this is why I like the level so much. So, if you imagine, listeners, that there's a gigantic S on the screen right now in front of you, because you're imagining that there's also a screen in front of you, imagine the giant capital letter S, and that is basically what the main path of this level looks like. But you're starting on the bottom left portion of the S. Yeah, I almost got killed. And then you're working your way up from the bottom, zigzagging to the right, up a little bit to the middle of the S, to the left, and then back around to the top right. And that's the main path. Let's talk about the main path. So the main path is pretty straightforward. I think the bottom level is the most complex. You have 5 pipes, and 4 of which have enemies that come out, 2 of which shoot fireballs at you, and the other 2 are just your basic piranha plant. And then you have leaves with different elevations of your basic platform. So instead of there being a solid ground, you have clusters of leaves that leave gaps. You fall into the gaps, you die. Too bad. We're up in a tree. This is serious business. The leaves gaps. That's how the bottom level is designed. Try not to fall. They tune this whole lower area to where you can just run and gun, keep the flow going, and that's nice. Even though it may look like you have to slow down for these guys that kind of pop up and down, you really don't. And if you do this last jump with the last piranha flower on the bottom right, if you jump perfectly over him, he's a little harder to do than these other ones, because as you can see, he's like a little higher up, but you can still cleanly do that jump, and you can combo off that ant on the other side, so that's pretty cool. So, okay, then we get around to the right side. You elevate by jumping on leaves and these weird moving platforms that are one way. And this game obviously needs to make the most out of what little space it has on that tiny Game Boy screen. So you'll find that it uses many one-way platforms many a time. In fact, the leaves themselves are one-way platforms. Now we're in the middle layer. The middle layer has almost no enemies. It's a straight shot to the left. And you're like, what's interesting about this? You're like, I don't know, well, maybe it has multiple layers to it. Well, we'll get to that in a second. So you go left on the middle path, there's 2 fly enemies that get in your way, and you say, get back here, flies, but they always fly away from you, and you go, that's so weird. But at least they didn't hurt me, so you keep moving. The only way you can kill them is with the fire flower power-up, as far as I know. So, you cannot get the fire flower power-up on this level unless you enter as Big Mario, in which that first mushroom will turn into a flower, or you get it, you take it fire flower with you from the beginning of the stage, so that's pretty cool. But then you got to keep it. If you enter the stage with it, you have to keep it all the way through the most treacherous part, and then make it up to the middle area, and then run after the flies and burn them as they try to fly away. Zigzag up the left side. There's some free power-ups if you can key into the fact that Nintendo loves to put invisible blocks in between 2 visible blocks. And this level opens up some new possibilities with hover power. Right after you get the hover power, they have coins displayed floating in midair, and there's an enemy that can come out of that pipe and ruin your day. But because the fall rate when you fly in this game is so utterly slow, you can't get them all in one run, but you can make it to the other side of the leaf safely and then cut back, so that's really cool. They tuned that to where it's a little dangerous. You need a power-up to get those coins, and you don't have to fall all the way down to get all of them. I like that, because otherwise it would be kind of cheap. like, oh, just jump twice at it and then fall all the way down and come back up. That's not cool. So this tests more skill and gives you a quicker chance at a second try rather than, you know, killing yourself for falling all the way down. And that's cool. That's power up. That's how you design optional layers with your power ups. So you get in the top layer, and then there's a few more enemies. They're kind of out of your way. The paths are a little more varied. You have a couple of stacked pathing situations, like, oh, almost like two paths running in parallel, but you got a little bit more variation on what you can jump to and why, and then you get to the end of the level. Pretty straightforward. But then there's a secret all the way to the right side of the level where you're like, hey, it's a money bag. You don't know that yet unless you've already done it, or you're looking at the level map like I am, but there's a money bag over there. You can kind of see it if you peek around as you platform up to that area. That's what I like about this level so far. I tested a lot of different common camera views and what you can see trying to play the game normally, and they give you little hints off the side of the screen as to how much more there is in this level, so I like that. You go and you try to jump for that money bag and you say, oh no, I fell completely short. And you're thinking, what do I do to get that money bag? And if you have a good sense of special awareness, you know that it's on the very right side of the stage, and when you get to the very top layer, maybe you can jump down. You just can't. The angle is not favorable. So you're like, I can never do it in my normal state, but you obviously need a power-up state. You grab that carrot, you turn yourself into a rabbit, and you get hover power. Right, guys? Pretty straightforward, huh?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a tree. Everything we said up to this point is true, but this is still a tree, so check this out. At any point on any layer, you can fall to the other layer. And what's impressive about this game is apparently it renders everything in the level simultaneously. We're not talking these Super Mario Land tricks where it can barely render the enemies on the screen with slowdown. Thank you, Super Mario Land. We're talking Super Mario Land 2, where the entire level apparently is rendered out, and if you hit the power-up at the beginning of the level, go up to the top and jump back down, it's still there waiting for you, because it's waiting for you. It's a mushroom.
They don't despawn.
Yeah, so we're either assuming it did some clever D and respawning tricks, or it just keeps everything rendered. One way or another, the effect is pretty cool. You're in one solid game space. And for that reason, whenever you're on an upper level, because we're working our way up the tree, if you fall in a hole, you reach a lower level. So a lot of games do this. Mega Man likes to make you drop from upper levels, but since the screen can like pan when you cross the barrier, you get a little bit of time to react. In this game, you don't get a time to react, but you need to leverage your knowledge of coming up the path to decide how you're going to fall. And if you have a good sense of space, because all the space is consistent game space, you can decide which way to lean, left or right, and perhaps save yourself. The higher up you are, the more chances you have to fall on platforms without falling down to the very bottom of the level. It's kind of like Sonic, but Sonic's a jerk, so we're not going to talk about him. And it's also kind of like Shovel Knight, if you're going to play Propeller Knight's level. Cool stuff. Let's keep talking here. So, falling is great. It's really not that interesting. You play a part of the level again, but it's more interesting than dying. So falling up from the upper levels here's the second reason why it's more interesting than dying. You could fall into a part of the level that you had not previously explored. That's pretty cool. Did you know in the middle of the level they have a question block with a heart on top? And if you hit it, it encourages you to jump up there and grab it. And if you jump on top of the odd-looking formation that's just to the right of that, you can maybe discover an invisible block and find out that you have a shortcut from the middle layer straight to the end of the level. Because obviously, if you can imagine that S, you're cutting out half of the level by going vertically instead of worming your way around. That's pretty cool. It's something that you are more likely to discover if you fall from the top layer. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's got your back if you fail. You can obviously keep your eyes open. You can see many of these sections, these alternate paths and alternate areas when you are going along the main path, but you don't necessarily have to take them at that point. But if you do fall from an upper path, you are more likely to fall into some of these optional areas. And with the Firefly power-up, you can kill every enemy on the stage. With the Rabbit power-up, which you can still get after you kill every enemy, you can get every power-up on the stage. And this stage is the only stage in the game where you can go vertically, horizontally. It has 2 power-up layers, a shortcut, and like 5 paths, if you will. So, best level in the game? Yes?
So it has a lot of benefits from presenting a consistent space.
I'd say so.
A real difference between this level and Warrior's Castle, which also has the same S shape to it, but everything is
It's true.
segregated in both in terms of floors and also in terms of the individual arrangements, the individual challenges.
Mm-hmm.